The Stinger missile is all over the news right now, and I haven't really seen anybody talk about the tactics about the Stinger missile and some of the downfalls of the Stinger missile. And the one thing that's also important to note is this. I was trained on infrared technology in the 101st Airborne with the Javelin. All this information I'm about to give you is not really anything secretive. This is all public information. You can even look up the field manual of the Stinger missile that talks about all of this. So, this is not new to Russia. When the Soviet Union tried to invade Afghanistan in the 80s, they had a very hard time against the Stinger missile. The Mujahideen, who have never even seen a computer or know how to use a Stinger missile or this kind of technology, the CIA handed them Stinger missiles and they took out helicopters left and right, and they were even taking out some tanks. But one of the biggest downfall about the Stinger missile is its infrared technology and the warhead. The warhead is only 2.5 pounds to 3 pounds. When you compare that to the Javelin's infrared technology and 6 pounds, you have quite a big difference. That's why the Javelin is primarily used and called an anti-tank weapon, and the Stinger is used an anti-aircraft weapon, and they really don't associate it with tanks. However, you can use a Stinger for a tank. So, infrared technology. Anything that has what's called a heat signature or a heat pattern, which comes from the engine or a tank moving, the Stinger can lock onto it with its infrared technology. Let's look at the field manual real quick. The infrared technology is, of course, on the front of the warhead. Now, the warhead, again, is 2.5 pounds. This means it's very limited on what it can do. The Stinger missile is not trying to take out a whole aircraft, especially the helicopter. It's going for that engine. Now, obviously, there's no brain in there that's saying, where's the engine, where's the engine? It's looking for the heat signature, and most of the heat is obviously coming out of the engine. A Stinger missile can take out and destroy a tank, but usually when you look at the pictures and videos right now in Ukraine, when you see tanks that are totally exploded or destroyed, most likely that is not from a Stinger missile. That's probably from a Javelin or some sort of UAV airstrike. When you see tanks with tracks being disabled, or sometimes the vehicle looks a little destroyed, probably from a Stinger missile. Again, Stinger missiles are looking for heat signatures, and vehicles have really big heat signatures, but they have more armor. The Stinger missile, we're going to compare what it can do to a Ka-52 because we have pictures and we have video where we can look at the damage of a Stinger missile. Most helicopters, at the top of the helicopter, they have either a single engine or two engines, and the thrust is coming out the back of the helicopter. Now, the Ka-52 in particular has a very strong thrust. It's a very powerful helicopter, so the Stinger has absolutely no problem in trying to detect its heat signature. But the thing is this. If a helicopter is coming directly at you, it can confuse the infrared technology because there's not a really big heat signature or pattern. It's going on in the back of the helicopter. So when you're using infrared technology, like the Stinger, you really want to try getting it from the side, because from the side, it's able to lock on that engine, and there's not too much heat signature spread. The spread of heat signature is what stops a Stinger missile. That's why when you see helicopters flying or aircraft, they're shooting flares out. Even sometimes tanks have flares. It's confusing the Stinger missile, and it's giving a really big spread to its heat detector. So typically, you never want to shoot at a helicopter when it's flying away from you, because those thrusts are shooting all that engine power behind, all that heat, and the Stinger missile gets very confused. But I want to show you what the Stinger missile really does to a Ka-52. Right here, you can see in this video, the Ka-52 got totally peppered from the side. You can see the side pod has been destroyed. The rotors are still intact, and most of the helicopter is still intact, but that doesn't matter when it comes to the aircraft. Once you take out the engine, that helicopter is disabled, and that's what the Stinger is doing. It's not exploding these vehicles like you see in the movies and creating these massive fireballs. Obviously, sometimes it is if it hits the right spot, but typically the Stinger and infrared technology is going for that engine. In fact, you can even see in the video all the pepper marks. And I think that's very important to know. I don't like when the media and people are just overhyping these things like they're so easy to use and they're destroying everything. There are a lot of limitations to what the Stinger can do. That is why I am providing this video for nerds and people who want to know about things like this, so that you are not totally brainwashed by all this hype. Just remember this: there are a lot of limitations against Stinger missiles and infrared technology. However, the Stinger missile, the reason why it is so effective is because it is so easy to use. Because at some point it is predicted the Ukrainian military is probably going to fall and it's going to have to go into an insurgency, but this won't matter because if the Mujahideen can use it in the 80s, the Ukrainians can definitely use it in 2022.